I have this weird compulsion. Whenever I see a doorway, a window, or virtually any surface that I believe someone could hide behind, I imagine a face peering out at me, staring. I imagine what I would do. What could I do? You will soon find out why I have this phobia. My mother and I were living in a small apartment. There was no basement or attic, obviously, but there was one tiny crawl space in the closet floor of my bedroom. I never looked in it. I suppose some people would be overwhelmed with curiosity, but my mind had already imagined all the worst scenarios. I decided to leave whatever dead bodies and ghosts were down there for whoever rented after us. It was a nice apartment, small but perfect for the two of us. We lived there for a few peaceful months until the noises started. It was nothing extreme, just the odd bump in the night and particularly scratching. My mom just brushed it off as rats in the walls. As long as they stayed in there, I saw no reason to get rid of them. A week or two later, I had already grown used to the noise. It became almost comforting in a way. After all, I never really liked silence. That is, until I woke one night to a different noise. A rolling sound, eerily similar to the sound my closet made when I opened it. I peeked my eyes open and looked over, but I couldn't make anything out in the dark. I thought maybe I saw something move, but I was well aware of how the mind plays tricks on you in the dark. There was only one way to find out. I turned on my lamp. When I turned on the light, I expected to just see a closet full of coats, but what I saw was much, much worse. It was an eye. Not just an eye, but the entire half of someone's face, barely visible in the tiny crack he had opened. He didn't even react to being caught. No smile, no fear, just watching. My heart has never beaten faster than that night. I wish I screamed or maced him or anything, but I just stared back, frozen in time until I couldn't hold it in anymore. I began sobbing loudly. I think I tried to say something along the lines of, "What do you want?" But it was garbled by my crying. He opened the door more. I could now see his entire body, which I don't care to describe as I've spent many years trying to forget that face. And then I heard, "Shh, shh, shh." He shushed me. I lost my breath at that. Hearing him made it real. I couldn't pretend this was some messed up hallucination anymore. At this time, I sat up and pressed my back against the wall. "It's okay, Lauren." He said it so cheerfully, it gives me chills just remembering it. This creep knew my name. My name. This is when I finally had the courage to run out of the room. My mom, still half asleep while she called the police, thought I had imagined it. Of course, by the time the police got there, he was already long gone. All that was left of him was that damned crawl space. I still never looked inside, though now I kinda wish I had. Having some sort of proof of this would, I don't know, comfort me? Because at least people would know I'm not crazy. Apparently, he'd been living in there. For how long? I don't know. But the officers who first arrived on the scene said that there were tally marks inside the crawl space. I didn't want to know how many. I didn't want to know whether he was marking days or weeks. I just wanted to leave that apartment. And we did. The police never found him. Not for certain. They thought they found a homeless man who matched his description, but he was apparently unresponsive. I've always thought they didn't take it all that seriously. They just thought he was a squatter, even after I told them that he knew my name. They thought that given how long he had seemingly been squatting, he had probably just heard my name through the floorboards. Since that night, he has been the face I always see when there's an open door or closet. It's grown more distorted as time goes on, but I can always make out a part of his pursed lips, as if he's still shushing me, even now. It's gotten easier with time, but I don't think it will ever leave me completely. This happened when I was 15, and I don't think I've been the same since. I live in England on an estate, not the worst in the Midlands, but far from the best. One house faces the back of the opposite house, so you have a great view of each other's garden. I always had the back bedroom all through my childhood with these adorable vintage curtains my Nana gave me, but no blinds. We only had the bare essentials, despite asking many times for some blinds up in my room. But I wasn't a bashful teen, so I would get changed in my room with the curtains open without thinking twice about it, until the family opposite moved out. As far as we were aware, no one had moved into the newly vacated house, which made the feeling that began creeping over me every time I was in my room even more concerning. I started very quickly to feel eyes on me almost permanently. I felt every move I made was being scrutinized, and I just couldn't figure out why. We all know the feeling, the way you know without looking that someone is standing behind you. So one day, I was standing in my window, sorting through my jewelry, when I caught a glint out of the corner of my eye, like the sun had hit the mirror for a split second before being hidden by a cloud. I brushed it off and carried on. Only a matter of moments later, it happened again. This time, I did not brush it off. I stopped still, staring out at the house opposite, but there were no more flashes. Although I could have sworn I saw movement. I told my mom about it, but she shrugged it off as me being paranoid and told me maybe if you didn't undress in front of the whole estate, you wouldn't be so paranoid. I asked her friend, who lived next door to that house, if anyone had moved in, but she assured me no one had. A couple of months went by. I still saw the flashes. I stopped changing with the curtains open. I stopped opening the curtains at all, to be honest. Someone finally took an interest in the house, so the council appeared in the garden one day, mowing and snipping the hedge. One of them went into the house and literally came tumbling out seconds later, retching and holding his stomach, stuttering something about a squatter. Another worker went in and came out in a similar state of disgust, shouting to call the police. When the police turned up, they went into the house and marched out 5 minutes later with a stocky old man who looked like he'd been living in a sewer and probably smelt like it too. Turns out he'd been squatting there for some time. They found a sleeping bag, rotting food, and bits of clothing. What they also found still disgusts me to this day. According to the neighbor, the room upstairs was covered in piss and feces. There were dried up tissues with semen in them, and worst of all, there were photos of me in my room, in my bra standing in front of my wardrobe, undressing out of my uniform, that day at the window too. There were drawings that looked like a 5-year-old had drawn them, of a girl with red hair, me, laying on a bed, covered in blood, and other things that no one managed to see apart from the police. I had probably walked past that cretin on my way home from school, smiled or said hello, and he would have thrived on it. Like I said, I haven't been the same since. I am painfully uncomfortable around a lot of men, particularly in the street. There are a lot of roadways in my area right now, and walking past all the pervy workers makes my skin crawl. I suffer with anxiety and take medication for it, but the panic attacks still come. It's an experience I won't ever forget, and should I ever have a daughter, she will be protected from such a thing happening to her. So my boyfriend and I moved into a house about 8 months ago. When we moved in, we noticed that no one lived in the house next door to us and that it was rather run down. After about a month of us living here, we come home to see a very old man, probably in his 80s, cleaning up the yard. We introduced ourselves and he told us his name is Bob. He's the owner and is in the works of fixing the place up. We've probably saw Bob about once a month since we had moved in, usually cleaning up the yard, occasionally with someone helping him. I last saw Bob about 3 weeks before this incident. We chatted for a bit and he asked if I would roll his garbage can to the curb on trash day. Everything seemed normal except for the fact that the gate to Bob's backyard had been left open several times and we hadn't actually seen Bob or any cars at the house. I initially thought it was kids in the neighborhood cutting through his yard, especially with school being out right now. But then, one of my patio chairs in my backyard went missing. My boyfriend and I figured it was probably just some kids again and didn't think too much of it, until I came home from work one day and noticed the gate open again. I decided to walk in his backyard and look around. After turning the corner around the gate, I saw my patio chair hidden behind the house. I realized there was clearly someone hanging out around Bob's house. I was pretty annoyed, so I went and picked up my chair and yelled, "I'm taking my shit back." As I did this, my boyfriend was at the side of the house and saw someone move behind a curtain in the house. We went inside and decided to call the police because we thought someone had broken into Bob's house. I went back outside to double check the house number on the door and then saw someone crack the door open slightly, peeking out. I confronted him again and asked what he was doing and why he stole my chair. He stepped out and said that he didn't have a stool to sit on, so he just decided to borrow it, and that he tried to ask us, but we must not have been home. He also said his uncle owns the house and is letting him stay there. My boyfriend asked what his uncle's name is, to which he said, "Uncle John." My boyfriend said that we actually knew the owner and that wasn't his name, to which he backtracked and said that Uncle John was just what he called him, but still couldn't provide an actual name. We asked if he had his uncle's phone number, which he conveniently did not. Basically, we were 99% sure at this point that this guy was a squatter, as he didn't know Bob's name and didn't have his phone number. I knew Bob lived about 2 hours away, and the police wouldn't be able to do anything without him being able to confirm or deny this guy's story. I had to go on an extensive Google search, as Bob has a very common last name, but finally found a landline listed in his name. After leaving a voicemail, Bob called me back. He didn't have a nephew, and definitely no one was supposed to be in the house. He called me again a bit later to tell me that he called the police and they may be contacting me as well. 10 minutes later, the police called. I told them everything that had happened. I was just getting to the part of him first peeking through the window, and the cop cut me off and said, "Ma'am, we will be coming out on foot patrol in a few minutes. Please stay inside." Then we heard the canines. We went to our window and saw the house next door being swarmed with police. The canines were going crazy, and the officers were shouting for him to surrender. They eventually broke down the door and arrested him. After the squad cars arrived and he was long gone, we went outside and spoke with the remaining officers. Turns out this guy had been terrorizing a girl on the next street over, slashed her tires, dumped gasoline on her car, and broke her windows. She got a rental car and he had attacked that one too. They had been chasing him for the past 3 days throughout the neighborhood, but he kept disappearing. They couldn't figure out where he was hiding until Bob called. I live with my boyfriend and my dog. My mom is my landlord and lives in the house right next to us. I work from home and my classes are all online this semester, so I'm here a lot. This house is very old and built very utilitarian, just basic. No insulation, no central air, natural gas, heat from radiators, etc. We moved in a year ago, and I had been hearing strange noises since we got here. The house was built in the 50s, and creaks and cracks a lot. I've heard the skittering of feet, maybe a fat squirrel or raccoon on multiple occasions throughout the year. There's an old chimney but no fireplace, and the radiator is hooked up to it as an exhaust. I had to move in my couch because old soot and gravel would come spitting out of the hole a few times at night. I thought it was odd, but I don't know how that stuff works. It's not unreasonable to think it was getting hot and popping out. A few times though, maybe 6 or 8, I was so distracted by the dull thudding noises coming from above my head that I nearly called the cops. I would go outside, wake my sleeping boyfriend up, and proceed to freak out until he calmed me down enough. He always said he didn't hear a peep and that my mind was playing tricks on me, but he showed me where his collectible swords and a heavy pipe were just in case. He told me to keep the pepper spray by the bed if it made me feel better. So, knowing all this, 4 months ago, my silverware disappeared. Poof, gone. It was not here in my house, nowhere to be found in my kitchen. My house is 600 square feet. How far can a few forks, knives, and spoons go? I had had some people over to work on the plumbing since moving in and to install a washer and dryer, but I was home while they were here. And why would they want my silverware? It was just a cheap set from Target. So I started racking my brain, trying to figure out what the hell I'd done with it. I am the one who does the dishes and organizes the kitchen. I mentioned it to my boyfriend a few times in frustration, since we only had 2 forks, 1 spoon, and 1 knife left. I told him we had too many dishes as it was, so I was in no hurry to replace them, but what the hell happened to them? Silverware doesn't just up and disappear. The odd thing is, we had about $5,000 in electronics in the house, and they were untouched. No clothes and blankets were gone. We had all our pillows and towels. No food ever turned up missing. Nothing. Just the silverware. Truly bizarre. This had been going on for 1 week shy of a year. I started to feel nuts because I am not a hypochondriac, suspicious type of person, but I could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Well, one night, my mom called me out front. It was 11:30, and I was rushing to finish some submissions for classes. I came out and she pointed out a light in my attic. You could see it through the cracks in the house. She asked how high the ceilings went up, and I said, "Not that high. What the hell is going on?" She wanted to check it out herself, but I convinced her to call the cops. About 10 minutes later, 2 officers walked into the backyard where the attic access is. They got on the roof, flashlights and weapons drawn. That's when I started to freak out and cry. I tried to keep it together and walked away. My mom was comforting me and my boyfriend was standing guard. The officers explored the tiny attic and came out alone. No squatters. But there were sleeping bags, liquor, and beer bottles, worn up pillows and papers up there. I know this had happened in the last 4 months because when we had the plumber out, we paid him a little extra to have his guys empty the attic. It had toys and shoes and some old TVs up there. We thought it was from the kids who used to live here. Turns out it was probably from random strange men living in my effing house. It sent shivers down my spine, and I felt both vindicated in my suspicions and sickened and scared. I spent the next few days adding locks to all my doors and windows. Keep this in mind as you try to fall asleep in your bed this week. Those men were creeping directly above my family's sleeping heads without our knowledge for as long as a year. Trust your gut.